Welcome back, nieces and nephews, to GWAP, which stands for Just Everything with Auntie Pookie podcast. I'm your host, Sydney, or as many know me as Auntie Pookie. Now, happy day 4 to Black History Month. And happy birthday to my sister, Ducky. I ain't gonna give y'all the real names of my siblings. If you know me, you know them, okay? Now, on today's episode of Black History Month, day 4, we are going to talk about Miss Rosa Parks. Now, everyone, or I should say many of us, know who Rosa Parks was and the impact she had in the Civil Rights Movement in 1955, which wasn't that long ago. And also, before I get into her life and what she did, it is her birthday too. So happy birthday, Miss Rosa Parks. She was born on this very day in 1913 to parents James and Leona. And she also had a baby brother who was born 2 years later. And I'm not sure if he had the same birthday as her. I didn't find the research on that. Around age 11, Rosa moves to Montgomery, Alabama, and she lived there through high school. She went to a laboratory school, which I'm not sure what a laboratory school is. And she also went to the Alabama State Teachers College for Negroes. Sadly, she had to drop out of school to take care of her grandmother and then her mom, who got really sick shortly after that. As the years passed, she ended up getting married at the age of 19 to a man named Raymond Parks, who was actually 10 years older than her, and he was a barber and a member of the NAACP. He was a great supportive man and supported Rosa as she finished getting her high school diploma. Shout out to everyone real quick who had to drop out of school for any reason or purpose or mental health emergency, family issue, whatever, and went back to go to school to get your high school diploma. Shout out to you, because I know it's hard, or you got your GED. Both Rosa and her husband worked as seamstresses and eventually became well respected in their community. Rosa also joined the NAACP, even though Raymond didn't want her to join because of how dangerous it could be. She joined in 1943, and she was the chapter secretary. She worked very closely with the chapter's president, Edgar Daniel Nixon. And she joined the NAACP because she wanted to make a change and she wanted to make a difference. On December 1st of 1955, this is when Rosa Parks' life changed for real. Rosa was 42 at the time, and she was on her way home from a long day of work. She was on one of the municipal buses, which a lot of Black residents didn't ride because they didn't have reasonable rules. Which is really wild, because about 70% or more of the riders were actually Black people, which was a little confusing to me because the laws, but I get, you have to do what you have to do, and if that route goes to where you need to be, you're on it. So in the law for the bus, to sum it all up, is that if a white person gets on the bus and they want your seat, you have to move back, regardless if it's in the white section or the colored section of the bus. And if the white section of the bus is filled and a white person wanted to sit down, they could take up your seat in the colored section. Ugh. It's so crazy how things were just separated like that, whites and coloreds. It just irks me. So on this day, a white man got on the bus and there wasn't any seats in the white section. So the bus driver told a few Black people, hey, you got to move. He probably didn't say that nicely, but I'm going to say it that way because I don't know. But yeah, the whites only section was full, so he had the right, per these laws, to sit in the colored section. All of the other people moved, and Rosa wasn't having it. Many people stated that she was tired, and she corrected everybody in her autobiography and said that she wasn't tired from work. She was tired of giving in, which I don't blame her. Even in today's society and the things people say and the experience I've encountered, I let people have it sometimes in the most respectable cussing out way with not even cussing. You know what I'm saying? So I completely understand. She's just sick of it. That same day, she got arrested at a couple of bus stops, down. And she was actually released that same day. And once the word got out, you know what I'm saying? Shortly after, the Montgomery bus boycott started. There was over 20K flyers put up around and given out so that people knew what was going on and to boycott the buses. Sadly, the laws were how they were back then. and Rosa was still found guilty for not following the segregation laws. Thankfully, she didn't have to go back into jail, but she had a fine that was smaller than $20 from court fees. Think about that. It's like the court fees were $20 nowadays. Air costs $5,000 million. Okay. Something that I found really interesting was during the boycott, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court and things started to get a little ugly. Nixon and Dr. King had their houses bombed. There were a lot of violent fights and crimes. But the amazing thing is that even though it got so ugly, people still remained and stood up for what they believed in. And then on November 13th of 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that the segregation of the buses was unconstitutional and the boycott ended in December on the 20th of the same year. That is a long time. A little over a month where people still were boycotting. And I wonder how long it took for the law to go into effect. You know how sometimes they pass laws and they're like, yeah, this is the law where you can do whatever in public or whatever. That law is going to be in effect in 5 years from now. It's like, oh my goodness, It's pretty interesting. And then after the civil rights movement and everything calmed down, Rosa Parks became known as the mother of the civil rights movement. Sadly, through this, Rosa was still getting threats and being harassed, so she and her husband moved to Detroit. She made a name for herself in Detroit, and she became the administrative aide in the Detroit office of Congressman John Conyers in 1965, and she retired from there. And she co-funded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institution of Self-Development to help with youth in Detroit. She kept pressing on to do great things, even though losing her mother, husband, and brother to cancer in 1977 and 1979. That is just crazy. When I was reading that, I was like, how did all of them pass away from cancer? And my mind kind of went all over the place. I was like, because she was so influential in the Black community and in the civil rights movement, I'm like, were people poisoning her family so that they could get sick and so she can be lonely and they would think she would stop doing what she was doing? I wouldn't put it past people to do that. There are so many people that sabotage their own family members, okay? Just so that they can get ahead and be better than them. So I'm always curious, or I was curious to know if, someone who was really mad at her and hated her because, one, she's a Black female and she made a change, if they contributed to that cancer. But we ain't going to get into conspiracy theories. She ended up traveling to many places to support civil rights events and eventually wrote her autobiography called Rosa Parks, My Story. I actually ordered that book on Amazon because I really want to know deeper into her life. The internet can tell us things, but I'd rather hear from the source. She passed away at the age of 92 on October 24th of 2005, and she became the first woman in the nation's history to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol. In closing, to this beautiful Black History Month Education Day, I'm going to say I'm just very grateful for all of the people that I have learned about even more through this time and all of the things they have done. Because if it wasn't for them, we would still be segregated. My parents would have never been together. My grandparents would have never been together. I wouldn't be able to hang out with my friends who I have friends from so many mixed backgrounds, and it's just awesome to be able to just share memories with them and not feel scared to or to hang out with them. You know what I'm saying? So again, happy birthday to the mother of the civil rights movement, and credit goes to history.com and womenshistory.org for some of the research I found. And thanks for tuning in.